Good evening, and welcome to all of you who have joined us for our new series of vigils for this coming winter months. So over the next 12 weeks or so, each evening at 10 o'clock London time, we hope to share with you a lot of what Matthew Fox has written about in his amazing, beautiful book, Christian Mystics, which has 365 readings and meditations. So let us begin quietly by just spending a few seconds or minutes in a time of stillness where we come together in love and we reawaken within our heart the mystic that is already within us. So let us be still and embrace all that we are as a child of God. And we begin by lighting a candle for peace and for unity within the mind and heart of every child of God, our brother and sister. So we offer the coming 30 minutes for our highest good, for the glory of God, and for peace to reign supreme in the heart of every child of God. Let us be still as we come into the presence of love, into the presence of God. And now we call on the Spirit of God. Breathe on us, O breath of God. Fill us with life anew, that we might love what thou dost love and do what thou wouldst do. Breathe on us, O breath of God. And now we begin by reading to you a few comments about this beautiful book. The great Thomas Aquinas has this to say: the experience of God should not be restricted to the few or to the old. And the great Father Bede Griffiths, the Benedictine, says, if Christianity cannot recover its mystical tradition and teach it, it should just fold up and go out of business. It has nothing to offer. And Dorothée Siol says, the language of religion, by which I do not mean the stolen language in which a male god ordains and imperial power radiates forth, is the language of mysticism. I am completely and utterly in God. I cannot fall out of God. I am imperishable. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, the number one obstacle to interfaith is a bad relationship with one's own faith tradition. Those words are powerful, don't you think? Albert Einstein was asked toward the end of his life if he had any regrets. And he answered, I wished I had read more of the mystics earlier in my life. This is a significant confession, coming as it does from one of the greatest geniuses of the 20th century, a man who moved beyond the modern science of Newton and ushered in a postmodern science and consciousness. In the West, the modern age, meaning the 16th to the 20th century, was not only ignorant of, but actually hostile to mysticism. As Theodore Roszak has put it, the Enlightenment held mysticism up for ridicule as the worst offense against science and reason. Still today, both education and religion are often hostile to mysticism. Fundamentalism, by definition, is anti-mystical or distorts mysticism. And much of liberal theology and religion is so academic and left brain that it numbs and ignores the right brain, which is our mystical brain. Seminaries teach few practices to access our mysticism. This is why many find religion so boring. So boring. It lacks the adventure and inner exploration that our souls yearns for. As St. John of the Cross said, launch out into the deep. And St. John of God was a Carmelite, like Teresa of Avila, a great mystic, a great man of God. And this launching into the depths, into the deep ocean of the unconscious and of the great self, which is connected to all things and to the Creator, often gets stymied by the Western religious dogma, guilt trips, and institutional churchiness. I like that word, churchiness. The mystic gets starved. Patriarchal culture by itself is unable to tap into the deep feminine aspects of divine wisdom and compassion and the heart. But the mystics, male and female, do not present a one-sided reality as patriarchy does. The yin-yang female-male dialectic is alive and well in the mystical tradition. God as Mother is honored along with God as Father. Through this, mystics seek wisdom, not mere knowledge. The West remains so out of touch with its own mystical tradition that many Westerners seeking mysticism still feel they have to go to the East to find it, as many have done. While this can work for many brave and generous individuals, it cannot work for the entire culture. Carl Jung warned us that we Westerners cannot be pirates, thieving wisdom from foreign shores, that it has taken them centuries to develop, as if our own culture was an era outlived. Is Western culture an era outlived? Or is there wisdom deep within our roots that can be accessed anew and that can give us strength and understanding at this critical time when so much is falling apart the world over? When climate change and destruction of the earth accelerate and so many species are disappearing, while our banking systems and economic belief systems, our forms of education and our forms of worship are failing. I believe there is a great wisdom in our species and in Western spiritual traditions, but that this needs a new birth and a new fresh beginning. As a Westerner, I must begin where I stand within my own culture and its traditions. This is where these 365 meditations, one for each day of the year, come in. We in the West must take these insights into our hearts on a regular basis, allow them to play in the heart, and then take them into our work and citizenship and family and into our community. This is how all healthy and deep awakenings happen. They begin with the heart and flow out from the heart. The crises we find ourselves in as a species require that as a species we shake up all our institutions, including our religious ones, and reinvent them. Change is necessary for our survival, and we often turn to the mystics at critical times like this. And Carl Jung said, only the mystics bring what is creative to religion itself. Jesus was a mystic, shaking up his religion and the Roman Empire. Buddha was a mystic who shook up the prevailing Hinduism of his day. Gandhi was a mystic, shaking up Hinduism and challenging the British Empire. And Martin Luther King Jr. shook up his tradition and America's segregational society. The mystics walk their talk, and talk often in memorable poetic phraseology, their walk. Deep down, each one of us is a mystic. When we tap into this energy, we become alive again and we give birth. From the creativity that we release is born the prophetic vision and work that we all aspire to realize as our gift to the world. We want to serve in whatever capacity we can. Getting in touch with the mystic inside is the beginning of our deep service. Today there is a genuine effort around the world at deep ecumenism or interfaith, the coming together of the spiritual wisdom traditions of the world. This is a positive development, but His Holiness the Dalai Lama points out that the number one obstacle to interfaith is a bad relationship with one's own religion. It is pitiful how few Christian leaders and Christian teachers, including in seminaries, know their own mystical lineage. These days, as revelations come to light about darkness in the Catholic Church, it is all the more important to pay attention to that which is true and deep and beautiful in the work of our Christian ancestors. Through the ages, even to today, Christian mystics and activists have stirred hearts and souls. It is valuable at a time of church reformation and even revolution to tap into this wellspring of truth and renewal. Reading and praying the wisdom in these pages moves me deeply to embrace my mystic, prophet ancestors. Excuse me. I hope it helps to awaken the same in the reader. That's you and me. The teachings here are universal, as all wisdom is. And when I share them with my Buddhist and Jewish friends, for example, they spark profound aha moments. Those who have traveled deep into their own well, into the living waters of wisdom, will find in its sources I present a common language and a common experience, and that it is as it should be. Divinity is one underground river, as Meister Eckhart teaches, and while you and I access different wells or traditions, still we come to common waters. Those who've been touched by Christianity may well find here a Christianity that they yearn to know but never heard of. Mystical Christianity is a very well-kept secret. It does not serve the interests of empire or patriarchy or churchiness, but it is coming alive again. a very respected contemporary biblical scholar, John Dominic Crossan, points out that for Paul, the first Christian theologian, the first writer in the New Testament, you cannot be a Christian without being a mystic. A new age is dawning. If that is the case, and none too soon. Our ancestors were all mystics. We, you and I, can also be mystics. You will meet some wonderful men and women in these pages. All are mystic prophets who speak deeply to us today. In addition to Jesus and Paul, I have chosen to cite over 2,000 other mystic prophets, and at the end of the book I offer a brief description of each person arranged alphabetically. Of course, there are lots more than 32 mystics in history of Christianity, including Ralph Waldo Emerson, George Fox, George Herbert, and more. This is but a beginning. Along with the quotations, I have provided commentaries of my own to help show how these mystics shed light on the significant issues in our time. And I invite the reader to respond by writing his or own commentaries as well. Our very survival as a species today requires a deeper awareness and ongoing practice of many of the themes that occur and reoccur in these pages. Some of the common themes that emerge from the mystic activists I cite include the marriage of spirit and matter, the sacredness of the earth, deep ecumenism, the omnipresence of divinity, darkness and shadow, beauty and joy, compassion and social and ecological justice, creativity, meditation, returning to the source, stillness, contemplation, or calming the reptilian brain, loss and dark, night of the soul, sacred sexuality, and more. Enjoy. And Matthew Fox says, go deep. Let the wisdom here marry the wisdom in you, and behold what you will give birth to. As with Mary, it may be another Christ. It may be a new expression of the Buddha nature. Hopefully, our generation will not suffer the mystical illiteracy of the past few centuries that Albert Einstein lamented. We cannot afford to. To survive our species, we must draw on the deepest gifts we possess. Mysticism is among the finest of these gifts, for mysticism is about the awe and the gratitude, the letting go and the letting be, the birthing and the creativity, and the compassion, including healing, and celebration and justice making, that our world so sorely needs today. The prophet or spiritual warrior the mystic in action. As American philosopher William Hawking observed, every mystic is a healer. We are healers all. Lovely words. And now, we're looking at the kingdom of God is within you, the historical Jesus. This teaching reaches deep into our own psyche and also into politics. Regarding ourselves, it raises the question, how big am I? How much of the divine life and spirit do I allow to flow in and through me? Do I feel experience in me? How do I slow down and be still so that I can feel this Spirit? The Spirit is as near as breathing in and breathing out. Politically, Jesus is taking on all empires and all kingdoms and saying that all can be idols. Those who hold keys to kingdoms and empires are not necessarily those who hold keys to what is really important. What is going on deep within is what is really going on. Do you agree? Do kingdoms and empires have a within? Or do living beings alone have a within? Do not look here or there, says Jesus. The kingdom of God is not a thing. It is not an object. It is not something that is about to happen. It has already happened. It is among us. We have to clean up our perception to see it better, to breathe its presence among us. It is a relationship, many relationships. We are challenged to think of ourselves in relationships rather than as objects, as me and you, self and other. Develop an amongness consciousness that is a relation consciousness. We retranslate this phrase from day one as queendom to bring in the feminine dimension in the reign of God. The Greek word used in the text can mean among as well as within. Bruce Chilton has this to say about the kingdom of God. He says the kingdom of God was the principal theme of Jesus' message throughout his adult life, and the pivotal hope of Galilean Judaism rule by a king was for Galilean Jews, but the source of their oppression under temporal emperors and kings, and their hope for the future under God. The world of Jesus made no distinction between politics and religion. The Romans not only obeyed the emperor, they worshipped him as God's son. Divi Filius, Jews not only worshipped God, but believed that he ruled them, and that one day his kingdom would be the only power on earth as it is in heaven. We're going to leave it there for tonight and resume this tomorrow. So now for this moment, let us just come as we are, to come as a beloved of God. Because you and I in the West have been starved. of mystical intimacy with God. But thank God, our hearts were guided to train our new monastic oblates through the interior castle, entering the castle, your soul, the amazing writings of Teresa of Avila, which is used as part of their formation, and the sole purpose of coming through the 7 mansions is at the end to experience divine seduction, to be totally in oneness with the Christ, the Son of God. So as we relax here, we give thanks for reading that short section on why is it necessary for you and me in the Western Church to come to terms with our heritage, with our legacy. We have had many great Christian mystics, but many, their teachings were kept quiet. They were locked away. And ordinary Christians, unless you were a seminarian in training, but not even they were given that information. So we were starved, like newborn babes of its mother's milk. But now we're not starved. For over the next 12 weeks, 7 nights a week, that's 84 sessions, we shall live in the footsteps of the great Christian mystics with a guided meditation and a reflection rooted in the mystics' tradition and teachings. So let us embrace the mystic within, and in the great words of the great Teresa of Avila, in her wonderful book, Entering the Castle, she talks about dissolving into holiness, and she shares with us a blueprint that allows us to face our demons and reptiles and come into the divine presence. And I'd like to share with you now, before we close, that wonderful prayer, the prayer of entry. I cross the bridge into the silent bliss of my castle. I close the drawbridge and forbid all outside influences from entry into this holy place that is my soul. Here in my castle I am alone with God, and under God's light and companionship I discover the depth and beauty of my soul. I embrace the power of prayer. I open myself to divine guidance. I surrender myself to become as a channel for grace, healing and service as God directs my life. And there you have it, the prayer of entry. And we shall say that every night as we come to understand one of the greatest mystics, Jesus, the historical Jesus, Teresa of Avila, Thomas à Kempis, Thomas Aquinas. There are so many, and yet, hopefully by the end of it, we will be so much more richer for rediscovering who we are, discovering our lineage to these great Christian mystics. So we don't now have to go to the East to embrace mysticism. Matthew Fox, in his amazing book, Christian Mystics, and with Spirit, we hope to take you on this amazing journey of reawakening your mystic within. Thank you for joining me. May the God of peace enrich your heart this night and plant a seed of wonder